Starting a nonprofit is a big decision and one that you probably don't want to take lightly. There's a lot to think about and a lot to do once you say yes. So you want to make sure that you know what you're getting into before you start down that path. I'm Sandy Reese, Chief Encouragement Officer at Get Fully Funded, where we help small nonprofits, including brand new ones, learn how to raise money so they can fully fund their operations. I want to give you some tips today if you're thinking about starting a nonprofit. It can sound pretty exciting, especially if you're thinking, oh, I just want to make a difference in the world. I want to start a nonprofit and then people will give money and this will be great. Well, yes, it can be, and it can also be a lot of work. A nonprofit is a lot like a business. In fact, it's just like a business, except at the end of the year, if you have any money left over, it goes back into your programs. It doesn't go to stakeholders. That's really the biggest difference. So it's about a tax status. And typically nonprofits have a mission to make a difference in the world or to change lives. And that can be very tempting for a lot of people. A lot of folks think, oh, I'm just going to start this organization. We're going to help so many people. And that's true. But there's a lot to do and a lot to think about. So I want to give you a few things to think about before you say yes and start down this path. Now, you may think, well, I think she's trying to talk me out of this. Maybe, but I just really want you to know what you're getting into before you do this. So the first thing is, what will the mission of your organization be? You want to be very clear about this. It can't be something vague like, well, we just want to help people. We want to empower disadvantaged populations to become as much as they can be in their life. Like, that is way too vague. So you want to have a very clear mission. Why? Because it's much easier to brand your organization when you're very clear, and it's way easier to raise money when you have a crystal clear mission. If you were to bump into somebody at a cocktail party and tell them what your organization does and they go, what? Then you got a big problem. It's going to be hard to explain and hard to get support. So you got to start with a very clear mission. And that needs to be like a very narrowly focused thing. So one thing that you want to do. You don't want to be, oh, we're going to help kids over here. We're going to help seniors over here. We're going to help animals over there. We're going to help people in Africa. We're going to do all this stuff. No. Pick one thing and laser in. And before you do that, look around and see, is there another organization that's already doing that? Is there another organization already addressing that need? Because if there is, you probably don't need to start another organization to do what they're doing. Funders really don't like that, and they call it duplication of services. So if you're thinking about starting an animal rescue to save St. Bernards, and there's already another rescue that saves St. Bernards, probably not a good idea. If they're in the next town over, that might be different. But if you're in your own backyard, it's going to be confusing. For example, in my area, there are about 3 or 4 nonprofit rescues that save golden retrievers. And I scratch my head and I'm like, why? Why do we need so many? Because that just seems like a crazy duplication of services. So look around and see, is there somebody already doing what you want to do? If there is, go talk to them and see what they're thinking. See if there's a piece of the need that they are not addressing that you could address. And that's a way smarter thing to do. What you might find is that maybe you don't really need to start a whole new nonprofit. Maybe if this organization over here is doing something similar to what you want to do, but you really want to do this one thing they're not doing, maybe there's a way for you to work with them under their umbrella to run this one piece of the program that's pulling your heart. So maybe you don't need to start a whole new nonprofit to do that. All right. Remember that you're going to have funding to keep your organization running. Now, some people try to fund it out of their own pocket, and if you're independently wealthy and you can fund your own nonprofit, then great, do that. If you're going to need public support, then you want to look around and see, are there enough people who are going to care about this little narrowly defined mission that we're going to deliver? Are there enough people who are going to care about that for us to be able to raise the money we need to operate? So there's like actually a couple of tips in here. Number one is you want to start to put some numbers on paper about how many people that you want to help and what that's going to cost and how you need to set your organization up. If you're going to have to hire people, what will that cost? If you need a building, what will that cost? So in other words, you want to try to do a budget for the first year or two so you have an idea of how much you need to raise. And then you need to think about how easy or hard it might be to find the people who are going to help you fund that. Don't assume that just because you set up a nonprofit that people will give. It doesn't work that way. Don't assume that because you are passionate about the organization that everybody else will be too. It doesn't work that way. People care about the things that they care about individually, and just because you're passionate doesn't mean anybody else will be. Now, this really gets tough when people start nonprofits to address a very specific, sometimes rare health issue. Rare cancers or really unusual health issues, because sometimes there are just not enough people who even understand what that is or care enough to give for there to be a sustainable donor base. And it can be very difficult to try to raise money for something that people don't know about and they don't have any interest in. So keep that in mind too. You want to make sure that there's a big enough audience of people who can support your organization before you start down this path. And finally, remember that launching a nonprofit is a lot like launching a business. You are going to wear many, many hats at first, unless you can surround yourself with a team of people who are going to help you get this off the ground. You're going to be responsible for setting up an office and doing all the administrative stuff and all the paperwork. You're going to be responsible for marketing, for the accounting, for fundraising, for the website, for the social media, for everything. So you're going to have to be really organized. You're going to have to be really good at keeping lists of things that need to be done, of making plans, and so forth. So just keep that in mind. It does take a lot to get a nonprofit off the ground. And if you are not organized, if you're not good with people, if you have control issues, you want to do everything yourself, if you can't string words together without misspelling half of them, these are all issues that are going to get in your way. Or if you're not a numbers person, that's another one that really makes life hard for folks. So think about these things before you start a nonprofit. It will help you. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying go into it with your eyes wide open so you know what you're going to get into once you say yes and start filling out those papers. You can get more tips on fundraising over on our blog at getfullyfunded.com/blog or on our YouTube channel at getfullyfundedtv.com. Hey, if you're on our YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the little bell notification so that you find out every time we upload new video tips just like this. That's it for today. I'll see you next time. Bye.